5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
The Eagle has landed. Hour 2 of the Marc Patrone radio program right here on Saga 960. Thank you so much for making Saga 960 part of your life. And we certainly enjoy bringing... Well, I'm just hearing some aliens on the other line. We won't get to UFO Friday until the bottom of the hour. But...
I have a good UFO story.
That's all right.
I got to tell you this real quickly. This summer, I was sitting in my backyard, and I'm watching this thing in the sky that's just slowly going over, right? And there's this big ball of light, and I didn't know exactly what it was. But the funny thing was, I was listening to Rush, that song, I think it's called like Xanadu or something like that.
Xanadu,
and it was just fit so perfectly, and I had the choice. I'm like, do I start filming this thing, or do I keep listening to Rush? And the Rush music fit so perfectly to the thing I was looking at. I'm like, I'm just going to keep listening to Rush and enjoy this moment.
So you don't know what it was?
I have no idea what it was. It was just some sort of small ball of light that was moving very slowly over the sky. And I was just sitting there drinking, I think, a brandy drink, and I'm listening to Rush, and I'm like, it was a perfect summer night.
Wow, that's exciting. I mean, did you think to get a shot of it, or?
Well, yeah. My only choice was my cell phone, and I was using my cell phone to listen to Rush. So it was like film it or enjoy Rush, and I went with Rush.
Well, maybe we should listen to a little bit of Rush. I don't know, Xanadu. Let's hear it. Let's listen a little bit. Yeah, I can see where this would be conducive to UFO sightings.
Yeah.
Good Canadian band, of course.
Yes.
There's Neil Peart, the late great. Yeah.
That's the one. So, nothing exciting going on in the United States today. It's a very quiet, boring day here.
Just another day in the neighborhood. But
just another day in the COVID neighborhood.
Yeah, well, we do have this story, though. Michael Moore, the documentary filmmaker, saying it's possible that Trump is actually lying about COVID-19 to gain sympathy. That's right. Miles Christen, by the way, I haven't introduced you yet. Miles Christen coming to us from nearby Madison in the great state of Wisconsin. Here we have Michael Moore, who's a rabid leftist and a Biden supporter, coming out saying this may be just a big fraud that Trump is pulling here. He's trying to get some sympathy. He's floating the conspiracy theory that Trump is telling a big fat fib in order to get some sympathy ahead of the presidential election. I mean, this is the depths to which these people have sunk, Miles.
You know, Michael Moore is such a fraud, and if you really want to find it, it's actually, I think, a Canadian documentary group that exposed him years ago, and they made a documentary called Manufacturing Dissent. And they basically go through how, Michael Moore is just basically this rich guy who sends his crews out to film everything, and then he puts his voice on it and acts like he made this film. And they literally, the Michael Moore people at one point went up to the Canadian film crew and knocked over their camera and tripod because they were attempting to film one of his little events. And, when I was like a high schooler running around with a camcorder, I thought Michael Moore's stuff was kind of cool. But then as I grew older and saw documentary after documentary about how the guy is just a complete liar, a complete fraud, and he's actually part of the 1%, and what has he done for Flint, Michigan? And he's not even from Flint, Michigan. That's another thing. He makes his whole career off being from Flint. He's not even really from Flint.
No, and I gave him some money early on. I thought, well, this is a cool documentary. It's kind of well done, and it was funny early on. But now Michael Moore is just a very rich fat guy, including owning a number of homes, including a $6.8 million lake house. I mean, this guy is not the working man that he seems to, portray himself as at all. And now here he is saying that Trump is just putting on an act or could be putting on an act. I mean, the reaction from the left has been well, I guess predictable in a way. Some of them are cheering.
You got to give him one thing. He was right about the 2016 election and Trump winning. And I mean, when it comes to the fact of how good Trump's doing, he has been accurate in that. So you got to kind of take him with I don't know if the grain of salt really applies or just that, there's a nugget somewhere in that dirt.
Yeah, exactly. Miles Kristen joining us on Saga 960. And then, of course, the other controversy involved another Canadian boy, John Roberts, a guy that we know up here as J.D. Roberts. But John Roberts on Fox News coming out and basically ripping some of those people who follow him on his Twitter feed, saying that he was way off base, accusing Trump of being a white supremacist, all because Trump apparently refused, but he has done it numerous times, to condemn white supremacy. And now we have a number of people, in fact, one black commentator by the name of David J. Harris coming out and saying this is a bunch of crap. Trump has, repeatedly condemned white supremacists. He's probably getting sick of doing it. Let's listen a little bit to what Harris had to say in response to some of the allegations being made.
For Chris Wallace to loft up a question to the president about Charlottesville, Chris, you had to know that was an absolute lie. Donald Trump never said there were very fine people on both sides, meaning the white supremacists or the neo-Nazis. He didn't say that. He actually very vehemently condemned them, period. And Chris, you must know this. Well, I think too many Americans don't know this, so that's why I've got this rendition going all the way back to the year 2000, where then Donald Trump, before he became president, over and over and over again disavowed anything that had to do with white nationalists, neo-Nazis, or the KKK. Please share this, because too many Americans are still believing the mainstream media's lies.
David Duke just joined. A bigot, a racist, a problem. I mean, this is not exactly the people you want in your party.
Yeah, David Duke and all were disavowed. I disavowed him on Friday. I disavowed him right after that because I thought if there was any question.
I didn't even know he endorsed me. David Duke endorsed me? Okay. All right. I disavow, okay?
I disavowed David Duke, and I disavowed him the day before at a major news conference. David Duke is a bad person who I disavowed.
Anyway, this goes on and on and on. The multiple times that Trump has disavowed white supremacists and said they're bad people. He doesn't want to have anything to do with them. And yet the mainstream media just keeps hounding him on this stuff. How do you account for it, Miles?
I mean, this is probably one of those issues where you probably take a little bit different stances on. I mean, for instance, the thing that he said in the debate where he used the term, he was asked about the Proud Boys and he used the term "hold on." I mean, that does sound like a pretty stupid thing to me to say, but both Trump and Biden have these connections that, for instance, Biden's got all these connections with these, former Klansmen Democrats, and we don't talk about that much. And I do think that, you could say that Trump actually has really good connections with lots of very prominent Black Americans, and that he has done a lot for criminal justice reform. We could get into aspects of his immigration policy that I would, disagree with. At the same time, Biden and Obama also, put children in detention centers and separated them from their family. And I would say that some of the things that Trump has said and done, I would consider to be racist. But at the same time, you listen to people on the left, and they basically compare Trump to Hitler, and it's like, well, no, it's nothing like that, But then again, I think most politicians have views that I consider to be offensive, and that kind of goes for all the politicians.
I've never heard. I don't know. Please point out once when Trump made an overtly racist statement. I've never heard him say anything that would qualify as that myself. And
it's not even that he necessarily says something that's directly racist, but he does in many ways rile up certain types of people. And I mean, I think I got to agree with like Senator Tim Scott about, Tim Scott got upset when Charlottesville happened and Trump didn't take a hard enough stance against those people who did that rally. And then, more recently with the Proud Boys comment, I think he was upset again about how Trump, it's kind of like the media sticks Trump into a trap and he gets stuck in it a little bit, and
yeah, maybe, but that doesn't make him a racist by any stretch of the imagination. If anything, Biden might qualify as much more so, having eulogized Robert Byrd, a former senator who was a member of the KKK. Yeah. This is absolutely about. I don't hear the media going after him.
Biden's the one that we really should be actually questioning more. And Biden Biden and Kamala would probably be very terrible. Would be worse for a lot of people in a lot of different communities. They crime bill, and then on top of it, just what Kamala Harris did as an attorney general would be. She was, on a national level. She would be terrible for all sorts of, poor and communities and so forth.
Let's run this latest attack ad by the Republicans directed at Joe Biden on the issue of law enforcement. Let's listen.
I've been a police officer for nearly 32 years. Joe Biden does not have the backs of police officers.
Joe Biden's silence is encouraging the rioters. If Joe Biden's elected, it's just going to continue.
Joe Biden empowers these people. The more you empower them, the more crime they go to commit.
In Joe Biden's America, we'll all be in danger. If you support the police and you want to be safe in your home and you want your children safe, support Donald Trump.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Well, how much is that going to resonate in Wisconsin and Kenosha and places like that?
It will, and, there's different ways of looking at how and why the riots will continue depending on who wins. I think in some way it's like, well, if Biden were to win, a lot of the major funding that's going into these riots will stop. If, there's the idea that, well, if Trump wins, he's going to come down hard on the rioters and everything. But at the same time, it's kind of like, in some way, it's kind of like the war on terrorism. You can't just, wage a bunch of wars to, get people to stop terrorism. Really, it's an economic issue. You get people jobs, but then again, how do you even change people's mindset where they want to actually be working? And that's a much harder thing to deal with. But I think the riots are going to, come to an end when people basically have to have jobs. When you're basically telling people that they can stay home and make money, and then at the same time, on top of that, it's hard to work when there is this deadly virus out there.
How do you think COVID-19 will have an impact on the Trump campaign now that we're just basically weeks away?
Well, God, the biggest thing of all right now is, we have no idea what's going to happen now that Trump has tested positive. This might mean nothing. It could turn everything around. You literally might see a President Mike Pence before the end of this. You might see Trump hospitalized where Pence needs to take over. Who knows? Theoretically, Trump could have been infected already and may have infected Joe Biden. We could literally see this election in the next few weeks turn into Mike Pence versus Kamala Harris. If somehow we get a vaccine out or come out with some major, breakthroughs in the next couple weeks, that would be great. And I think that could help them. And I honestly, I want a vaccine. I want treatments. I want everything out there as soon as possible because that's the best thing for society, really. And I think that goes beyond political. And if all the good things like that happened, yes, that would be beneficial to the Republicans. And I think they could have done a lot more for the last 8 months. And, I get that Trump did the travel bans that helped, but at the same time, Democrats could have done a lot on the state level, and every state governor could have done a lot more to limiting the amount of travel between the states. And I literally think it gets down to a municipality could have decided to hire the local contractors instead of the cheaper out-of-state contractors, and you didn't necessarily need to restrict travel as much as you needed to incentivize keeping things local. Sorry, that was a long
No, it's okay. It's all right. No, I tend to agree with most of what you said, though I don't think this diagnosis will slow Trump down much at all. We had the leader of the Conservative Party up here. He came down with it. A week later, he was back at work. As far as I know, he had no symptoms.
Boris Johnson, too, suffered from it. I mean, the thing is, it's like anybody, it affects so many people differently, and we don't know why one person is asymptomatic and then you have a 30-year-old die, or in the rare cases, you've even had children die. I
Very
mean,
rare.
We don't know why it affects different people differently, and we will see.
Thank you, Miles.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Miles Kristen coming to us from near Madison in the great state of Wisconsin. Back with more on Saga 960 after this.
Stream us live at saga960am.ca.